But Chris here today will tell us what made it really to the next step. So Chris, please
Yeah,
take
thank you.
seat
Pleasure to be here.
and share a bit more about how the association and what it represents resonates with policymakers and like in Brussels in general, because it's been around for some time, right?
Yeah, eMobility Europe, formerly AVER, was launched in 1978 in Brussels. It's a very different organization now. I always like to think, what would that have looked like in the bar when people came together and made the eMobility Association back then. Now we're an organization with over 80 members. We represent the ecosystem for electric vehicles in Europe, OEMs, charging infrastructure, supply chain, technology providers, national EV associations, and a lot of the people here in this warehouse today. So,
No, the work with national associations, I find it very important because you get the pulse of the market, and then you can communicate, some of those messages before they emerge as European problems. Some of them can be contained locally, is what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in Brussels, it's very much a bubble. It's sometimes quite detached from what's happening in national markets, especially for electric vehicles. It is so national how everything is doing, and the ability to tap into people on the ground, seeing what's happening in Bulgaria or France or Germany, and feeding that to policymakers helps.
I mean, I can tell you for us at AMPECO, it's been a very clear sign, and myself, I've been working in Brussels before joining AMPECO, but I know that collaboration in this context is important to get your message across. But it seems like there's signals out there that tell us it's not optional. Companies have to be involved. What's your view on that, and how do you see that type of collaboration important for the growth of the industry altogether?
Yeah, I think for electric vehicles, collaboration is a must. Here, it's a must, and the policy environment is a must everywhere to make this happen. And you know it more than most. It's not just about cars, it's about the infrastructure, the software, the technologies, the supply chain, and it's our job to provide that collective voice to the policymakers and make sure all parts of that have a voice as well that are heard, because policymakers have to set the direction forward for us to go, and they need to understand in a simple way all of the complexity that lies underneath. And
they don't need to know what's an EMSP, right?
No,
they need to understand the principles behind first.
Exactly
that. They need to understand what's the principle that we want to push as an industry.
No, exactly. We have briefing documents for members about the acronyms not to use with policymakers. EMSP is on that briefing document for sure, but it's our job to relay it in simple ways a politician can understand and allow them to take decisions which then benefit this industry.
Yeah, and how do you see the consensus that industry members are reaching? How do you see that impacting policymakers? Because I know you've met with quite a few high-level officials who now, as part of the strategic automotive dialogue, there will be other meetings as well. And how does this consensus reflect with policymakers? How do you see that?
I think politicians want to see a strong centralized voice giving them views on where they should act. And the more consensus we can build, the stronger our voice is to those politicians. So they're busy, they don't have so much time. If we can do the job of combining this ecosystem and providing a path forward, that's the stronger for us, and policymakers benefit from that. At the same time, they get many different voices from car makers, from here, from there, and I think our job is to show them this wider ecosystem and that it does have business leaders there that they also need to listen to as part of their decision makers. And indeed, we found that's valuable. It's valuable at the technical level, where they need to make very specific requirements in standards, delegated acts.
Like with AFIR, with the delegated acts.
Exactly, but it's equally important at the political level, where they need to defend their direction of travel on the targets.
Yeah, because we discussed it briefly earlier as well, the position of Europe in terms of global competitiveness and how we are preserving jobs in this space. I think that's been a big discussion in Brussels these days, because we heard a couple of days ago there were some numbers from Germany about job losses in the automotive industry that was kind of correlating with the revenue decreases as well. But at the same time, it seems like no one is talking about all the new jobs that companies here have created, right? I mean, what do you think about that? How does that, as a message, how do you kind of play out that message in Brussels?
Yeah, for politicians now, you have to win the economic argument, the resilience argument, and the jobs argument. And We've seen that electric vehicles have been very politicized in Brussels, in the member state level. There's a culture war happening about whether they're good for Europe, whether they're handing power to the Chinese, all of these other arguments. But at the same time, what you say is true. By our count, the EV transition has already created over 150,000 jobs in Europe, in the charging ecosystem, but also the battery factories we do have, the power supply, and some of the new factories for electric vehicles. At the same time, it's a massive transformation Europe has to undergo. We have supply chains to transform. We have car makers which have to restructure and resize. So there are hard trade-offs involved in this, which is difficult for politicians as well to engage with. But I think our job is to show the direction of travel is inevitable. It's electric. The rest of the world is going there. And Europe has to be in the game to create the jobs and make sure we have to make a success of this. And there is a powerful economic argument. And you can see that here with all the businesses, around this warehouse. There's different business models. It's not just big factories, it's also software, technologies, the things that connect things together.
That's probably the most important point here, and I was thinking about that as you were just saying it, because we're not simply adding only manufacturing jobs. Of course, the hardware manufacturers, they do that. But compared to the ICE world, where we were thinking only about, the car, but how it used to be, you compare it now, all the new revenue that's coming to, national budgets for companies who operate in Europe is through eMobility services altogether and solutions. Everything has to do with smart charging and energy management and integrating a lot of other functionalities into the charging experience alone generate revenue. Same on the battery side and storage. So I think that's something that I hope politicians get to understand more and more, because it's not simply the 150,000 jobs, it's also high-value jobs, which I think is an important argument.
Yeah, certainly. And I think sometimes there's a bit of defeatism when we talk to some policymakers. This race is lost. China's won on batteries, it's won on AI, it's won on software. Europe has to hold on to what it has or we'll have nothing else. But we are creating businesses here, we are creating new models, and we have to show the Commission, that the European policymakers, that this is happening, and it has to happen if we want to make a success of things too. The alternative is that other parts of the world will overtake us.
Yeah, no, that's true. We see quite a lot of, challenges that are in a way also handled by associations like yours, and that's why we're a member of, and we're happy to also be on the board of the association in order to provide our software perspective, which I believe is quite unique, not only from the fact that we operate outside Europe in so many markets, but also we're based in Bulgaria, right? It's the market known for the slowest adoption, or the lowest amount of vehicles. But at the same time, actually, the charging space is quite well built. Some would say even it's overbuilt because there are not enough vehicles. The charging is there. But bringing that perspective for us has been very important to share that, we gain a lot from the market insights that we get outside Europe and bring them to Europe. And also, when we work abroad, we use that knowledge in Europe and we share it. So try to do a lot when it comes to that.
Yeah, maybe a question back to you, because, we're happy to have you on our board too. We have got a board representing OEMs, charging, battery suppliers, truck makers, a whole bunch of different companies. But I'm curious, how do you show return on investment on these things too? Because policy can be a soft world. You have to go and show business value to your company as well. How do you do that with an association like ours?
Yeah, it goes back to all the insights that we can gather. I guess that's where I start, the knowledge. But then also how we utilize that knowledge. So we don't operate a charging network, as you know, but we have a lot of clients who do, and they operate in multiple markets. So using the knowledge that's being discussed in the association, and then advising and consulting our clients has been one, but also simply having a very, I would say, quick approach to integrating and anticipating new regulatory changes into our product, which with the delegated acts and the national access point and the reporting there, which is a mess, by the way, issues like fiscalization, those type of issues are all topics that one way or another are covered in the work. So we use that knowledge also to benefit our product. And I know for a fact that there's also companies who would tap into incentives and funding, especially on national level, but also EU level, like AFIV, and certainly understanding how those mechanisms work, how companies can benefit from them, I think is also a fair point to add here.
Yeah, and we benefit from having the widest spread of companies in our position processes, decision-making processes as possible, because the more work we can do to find unintended consequences of policies or something that might impact you but not another person and solve that, the better the chance the policy at the end is going to be a path that delivers benefits from the ecosystem and isn't a missed opportunity there. So the more we can do, the better the policy comes as well, we hope.
Well, I mentioned earlier the strategic dialogue that's on the 12th. Can you share some of your thoughts about it? Because that's a monumental event happening, right? I mean, the Commission had that in, I believe it was beginning of March, one similar dialogue, and they agreed to reconvene after the summer, take stock, and basically that's all in light of the 2035 target, right?
Yeah.
Which will impact investment decisions, investor certainty, overall pace of electrification. So how do you look at it right now? I mean, a couple of days away. What's up? What's cooking?
Well, this is going to be an explosive period for the pushback against the EU's 2035 targets. We know that. We've seen various forces preparing to really try and change the EU's approach. This goes much wider than cars and electric vehicles. It's the fuels lobby. It's the suppliers. It goes very broad. And this is all focusing on the 12th of September. We expect there that there will be a formal push from a lot of car makers that the EU has to take its foot off the gas, look at a lot of alternative technologies, from plug-in hybrids to the use of biofuels and other fuels as well. So a big message for me as I'm here in Berlin is to try and make sure that this community is standing up together to say this regulatory certainty is important for investment decisions and for the jobs that we're creating. And that's something I've heard a lot from whatever companies I'm speaking with, whether it's in the software business, the charging business, or the battery business, that we need to have reliable demand signals to plan investments with, and then we can start to address all of the other challenges that Europe has. So I think the dialogue on the 12th, and then the next 6 months will be very politicized in this. We'll be flying the flag high for Europe keeping its regulatory certainty in place, but not being complacent at the same time. It is true that China has invested more strategically in this area and Europe has to do more, but let's focus on those challenges and not get distracted in false discussions around technologies that are only going to waste us time in this effort.
Yeah, and I think you're in a good position to also showcase what European leaders are doing, because companies who are members, they're among the leading companies in the space for sure. And you mentioned earlier that, sure, on the battery side, China has advantage when it comes to supply chains. But there's a lot of innovative companies who work in the storage space, in demand response and other markets. Also, I would say in the software space, just looking around, I mean, I wouldn't say 1/3 of the companies are doing software, but quite a lot are. So that shows something, right? And last but not least, I think it's a good moment to have a broader dialogue, and I know you're doing, others also in Brussels are doing, approaching the suppliers, approaching the OEMs, trying to agree at least on some other aspects maybe, but ultimately, the 2035 is the big.
Yeah, but this can be frustrating, getting bogged down in discussions around targets when there are so many other areas for collaboration on driving this forwards, and that's the discussion we would like to have once this becomes depoliticized. But one thing we are doing, which I mentioned, is we have a letter which we're preparing to send to the European Commission on the 8th of September, next Monday. The idea is to bring all of these companies together and show the business leaders by company who are supporting this target. Last check, we had over 85 companies who are signing that letter. Amazing. We expect to get over 100 with this, but any company here or around the ICNC who would like to add their name and logo to that letter, please come and talk to me, because it's really important that the Commission sees this collective effort, this collective ecosystem, and makes that connection. So we'd like to send that message, and then we'd like to facilitate better discussions on actually making this transition happen, making the infrastructure rollout, the vehicle-to-grid potential happen, making sure we can build things in Europe like batteries. I think there's a lot of ground here that, unfortunately, we're all wasting our time discussing other things which prevent us from...
Which were supposed to be decided, by the way, already.
Exactly, yeah. We should be, yeah.
At the same time, I mean, playing a bit devil's advocate and also trying to be realistic, we have to agree that what the automotive industry is seeing right now isn't very bright. I mean, it's really a tough market to compete in, a market that doesn't have big margins historically as well. So it will be a tough several years for Europe's OEMs, in my opinion. But it's regrettable that they were rejecting for some time maybe that full move to electrification. But that's in the what if section, I guess.